So coming up in just a moment, we are going to do a slightly different format, I suppose you could call it that. We like to call it the face-off. And what it is a debate-style engagement. But before we actually start that engagement, I'd like to talk a little bit and take a moment to talk a little bit about AI. The topic is going to be whether it really is improving productivity. I suppose when one is looking at this, it's always about the is it, what do you use to measure, how do you look at it, what are the considerations that you have to make. And in this coming up session, we are going to have people who might have slightly different views on the topic because it's a little bit of a debate. So it's something that we are doing to engage a little bit more with the subject, to give you as an audience a slightly different perspective, but to also make it a little bit different and engaging for the speakers themselves as well. So I hope you are going to enjoy the slightly different format. And bear in mind as we're speaking that the point of the exercise is one, yes, to have differing views, but also to begin challenging and painting that landscape that I mentioned earlier, where we're trying to look to how do we identify solutions, what are the areas of focus that we want to make sure we're paying attention to, and how then do we begin implementing some of those remedies. So I think it is going to be a good one. So if you then can join me in welcoming to the stage the debaters. First off, Engineer Khalid Alhogail. He is the Managing Director and CEO of Saptco Group. Then welcome David Barnes. He is a workforce policy consultant at DNB Global Consulting. Sven Otto Littorin is the former Minister of Employment of Sweden. Dennis Pennell is the global labor expert and work futurist. And last, but most certainly not least, Christopher Warhurst, Professor and Director at the Institute for Employment Research at the University of Warwick. Oh, this is so exciting. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us. And I would like to say, I am the only lady on the stage. And I will say nothing more about that. Oh, thank you. I love this audience. Okay, so the format is going to be as follows. Each speaker is going to get 1 minute, and I would like, gentlemen, to make an emphasis. I'm quite strict about these things. So it is 1 minute, not 1 minute and 1 second. It is 1 minute. If the 1 minute clock goes ding and you are still speaking, I will stop you. So please make sure that you are concise and precise and to the point. And yes, there is a clock there, so you can check yourself before I have to stop you. After each of your opening remarks, I will then begin the discussion and the debate with questions. Is everybody comfortable with the rules? Audience, are you ready for it? All right, so I am going to start literally on my far right and work my way this way. Engineer Alhogail, floor is yours.
Yes, please. Good afternoon, all of you. I have 1 minute to just express my thoughts about today. We are about the labor market as well the AI impact. Is it positive? Is it negative? How is it going to be influencing our productivity or challenges? I have to pave the discussion here from my minute is about reminding all the audience about how is labor market has been influenced a century ago. Actually, 100 years ago, when the industrial revolution happened, it was a big challenge for the market. What happened after? Here we are today witnessing after 100 years, more jobs, more productivity by using technology. Let's see in the last 30 years, we have a lot of things has been influenced our life. We've been in the mobile influence for our life. We've been with the social media. We've been with the internet publicly. And today we're waiting for the AI to see what's there.
Thank you very much. David?
If you won't invest in AI or get trained, prepare to look for a new job or watch your company go into terminal decline. AI is not just an efficiency play, but an opportunity to totally reimagine the very things we do at work. Success is built on 3 factors. One is recognizing that people and not technology are core, and empowering employees to reimagine their work and the way they do things, and to train them to give them the skills they need. Second is a robust governance infrastructure. Third is the use of open AI models fit for specific use cases. And there are myriad use cases giving payback right now. Human resources, software development, customer service, finance. They are all paying back right now. So my message is, do not wait.
Thank you. David, Sven?
I will shock you all by saying that I'm a Marxist. Not Karl Marx, though. He failed. But Groucho Marx, who said once that the art of politics is looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, misdiagnosing it, and then applying the wrong remedies. Now, politicians have not yet started looking for trouble with AI, and I think for a good reason, because AI really promises to deliver on productivity growth on an aggregate scale, on a corporate level, not necessarily on the individual level. And the problem is that I've only seen one person actually looking for some trouble here, and that is Professor Robinson, the Nobel laureate who was here yesterday. He talked about making AI more people-centric. And I think that is what politics should be doing when it comes to AI, making sure that we can turn AI's productivity gains into personal productivity gains for the individual.
Dennis?
Well, my bet is that in 5 years' time, we won't be speaking any longer about AI. Not because it will have disappeared, but because it will be embedded in all of the different devices, tools, and software that we are using. AI is the new electricity. The same way you don't think, about electricity when you switch on your laptop or your TV, you will be using AI without even knowing this is AI. And why so? Because AI is going to bring massive productivity gains. And the same way electricity revolutionized our world, AI will do. It will automate work, especially cognitive work. It will extend working hours. AI never sleeps. It will deliver flexible and sustainable production models. It will reduce cost, obviously, increase efficiency, and accelerate innovation. But of course, it will do so at a much faster speed than electricity did, so be prepared.
Thank you. Christopher?
Well, thank you. All technologies have the opportunity or the potential to deliver productivity gains, but not all technologies deliver those productivity gains. Historical evidence and our current experience tell us that one of the problems is that we have an inordinate belief in technology, that technology alone will deliver those productivity gains. What we do is encourage firms to invest in that technology, stand back, and somehow magically the productivity gains will emerge. And that doesn't happen. For new technology to deliver those productivity gains, it has to be managed properly. And that management includes workers' involvement in that technology. It means involving them in how it's introduced, how it's used, and having a say in its benefits and how they're distributed. We used to call that the socio-technical system, that you'd have the technology on one side and the social side on the other. And it's the two meeting properly and articulating together well that makes technology deliver productivity.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Did everybody survive?
Yeah.
Is everybody still with me?
We did.
This is great. I'm loving it.
Question is if the audience did. But
No, they are. I can see smiles, so I think they're pretty happy. All right, let's get on with the questions then. Christopher, if I can then just begin with you. You're making a very distinct point and a differentiation between productivity and what the employers are or aren't doing. What are we doing in terms of clarifying or distinguishing between the perceived gains and the measurable improvements that are actually real gains when it comes to productivity, which involves AI?
Okay. I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge here is that we have a private conversation. We talk about productivity. Out in the real world, employees don't talk about productivity. They talk about sales, quality of their products, and they talk about reducing costs. And if you look at companies that have invested in AI, they're the reasons why they invest in it, and they're the benefits for it. So some of the work that we've been doing around the UK government, when all this big thing kicked off about, AI is going to take all the jobs. Governments were panicking, and they said to us, have you got anything on this? And we said, nobody's got anything on this. It's all just modeling. There's no empirical evidence. So we went out and asked employers who had invested in AI and said, why did you do it, and what were the benefits? And they said, we did it because we wanted to reduce costs, because we wanted to increase revenue, and we wanted to improve quality of our products, and because they were a bit worried that competitors were going to do it. So they did do it. The striking thing is, though, it's mainly private sector companies and the new companies that are doing it. The public sector's far behind on that. So we need to start thinking about how we can share that AI around a bit more, I think, if we're going to get the benefits.
Sven, you were talking just a little earlier in your opening remarks about the need to make it people-centric, which is something that Christopher's alluding to. You know, how do we model this in a way that is people-centric? What is the real way of doing this? Because we can have deliberations, and you know, this is beautiful, we're in Riyadh, it's lovely. We can have great conversations about what we should do, but in reality, where do we start unpacking this?
Well, basically, I think, listen, when big data came and we sort of shared all our knowledge, our patterns of behavior, our purchasing patterns and everything, the only thing, we did that for free, we gave up all this information, and the only thing we got back was perhaps a little bit better ads and a bit better suggestions. Now, the thing with AI, and the problem with AI, is that what we get back is a pink slip. We get fired, because productivity has increased so much if we share all this information. So the question is it possible to make AI technically so that it becomes more of an assistant to me to increase my productivity than just something ominous up there? I'm not sure that works, but we have to start the discussion, just like Professor Robinson talked about yesterday.
David, does it work?
Of course it works. You know, implementation of AI, despite what Sven was talking about earlier, it's not up to politicians to mess around with this. It's up to employers. Employers have the incentive and the relationship with their employees, their workers, to implement this. And smart employers know that workers understand their work processes, their jobs best. In IBM's experience, 70% of the suggestions for new AI applications were coming from the employees because they'd been reskilled and they were interested and they saw it as a growth opportunity, not a pink slip. The trick is for employers to think about AI as augmenting or assisting their workers, not replacing them.
Khalid, how easy is that to do?
Again?
How easy is it to do for employers to think about this when at the end of the day, you know, business is about the bottom line. They want to make sure, how are we more efficient, how are we more productive, how do we increase the bottom line, as already alluded to. However, when you're having to consider employees and their opinion, it can complicate that.
Yeah. AI, when we talk about it, we talk one side to the other. It's AI that it's ready, it's going to do whatever it will do, increase productivity, doing the efficiency. But we have to focus, actually, to reach that goal, is about the labor themselves. Are we preparing them? Are we really educating and changing the education system to be really ready when this very speedy AI now is improving? We have all of this to take care that they are a partner. They should use the AI as a tool for their continuation, not to be replaced. But how? This is where I'm saying that. Are we going to be late? We need to see the education system. We need to do the education from the companies and wherever. Always technology is improving the job environment by having things. Imagine an engineer without a calculator or without any system. Imagine all these people for manufacturing. So I'm sure that all here and the audience would love to have that. How can we really take the awareness of the AI as something will be in our life? And I love what you said, Dennis, about it's the new electricity that we live without it, we live with it without feeling or thinking. AI should be something in our employee looking for the job continuation and development.
Sven, and then Christopher, and then Dennis.
The good news is that we've been through this before, right? So the industrialization was an amazing success, if you think of it. In my native country, Sweden, in 1860, 98% of Swedes were in the agricultural sector, farming. And with the same agricultural size of the land today, 3% of the population, of the working force, is producing 8 times as much. I mean, talk about productivity growth. It's amazing. And those people who were left, left out of the agricultural sector did find new jobs because the industry, all these new jobs you were talking about actually came. The same thing will happen now. The only thing is that the transformation process between the old state and the new state, that's where we need some what you call a grease, basically, to make it happen so that people won't lose faith in society.
Christopher, and then Dennis.
Tumi, you're right. It is a challenge and it's difficult. But if we're going to make it work, we need to rethink how we do management. I mean, some of the work that we've done for the Labour Relations Agency in Northern Ireland about what makes a productive workplace. You can throw money at workers, and that does work. It improves productivity. You can increase work-life balance, and that improves productivity. But the biggest factor that has a positive impact on productivity is giving workers voice and representation. Now, that can be trade unions, and it can be non-trade unions. And that is a challenge to a lot of managers, giving up control to workforces. But my position is a simple one. Over the last 20 years, we've seen a massive increase in the number of clever robots in Europe. We've seen employment more or less flatline, a bit of a slight rise, so we know it's not going to really impact on employment, but we haven't seen the productivity gains. Productivity in Europe for the last 20 years has been roughly about 0.9% of a year. That's terrible, so we need to start thinking about doing something differently, and I think managing it differently and managing people differently in order to realize the productivity gains is the way forward.
Dennis?
Yeah. Well, I'm not that much worried or concerned by the fact that people will not adopt AI. Actually, most of us probably have the ChatGPT application on our smartphone. AI actually is already a service being used by individuals for your private life. You're looking for a restaurant, you're looking to have a summary of a report, you are going to use AI, and you already do it, and you know how to do it. So I'm not worried from that side. AI is there, it is being used. What matters, I fully agree, is the transition from this time to the next phase, because yes, AI is being implemented in a very fast way. Interesting to note that when ChatGPT was launched 2 years ago, it only took 2.5 days for ChatGPT to reach 1 million users. 1 million users, 2.5 days. The second best in class is Instagram. It took 2.5 months to reach the 1 million audience. So you can see the speed and the level of adoption of AI. And again, why so? Because first of all, it is being seen as a service to individual. And the same way that, many workers, had better equipment, better devices in terms of IT solutions, the BYOD, bring your own device to work, the same way they are going to import AI to their workplace.
Well, let's then talk about current workforces. I mean, we can all have debates about what employers have to think about and governments, but the reality is that we've got people in work today. And many of those people, some of them use ChatGPT, some of them don't even know what you're talking about when you say AI and generative AI. So you've got this huge discrepancy. How do we begin ensuring that the current workforce is able, Dennis, to begin making that transition that you're talking about?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure that everybody is equipped to use AI, indeed. But I mean, if you look at the connection to internet, almost the full working population now has access to internet. So that's the first thing, of course. The transition is also about skilling, obviously. Yeah? It's the role also of the employers and the public sector to train people, to make sure that they are confident using AI, and also to follow, once again, the speed of the deployment of AI.
Funny.
But then again, it's really, we won't have the same time as we had for the electricity revolution. It will go faster, that's for sure, so we need to start here and now.
Khalid?
Yeah, I think people as employee will develop themselves because they will know that this is the need to continue their jobs. Their jobs will be there, but it will be replaced by the people who increase their skills the way that they can use this technology, these tools as AI. I would like to remind you, here in Saudi Arabia, let me say 40 years ago, or 45 years, I'm from the transportation business industry. It was run by the American, 45 years. Imagine, the skills needed that time is who speak little English. Those became a little bit promoted. So they developed their English. Those people later on the stock market in Saudi Arabia, when the internet being there, everybody doesn't know how to use it. but because of the business, they improve themselves to know how to use the internet. So things will come, and I'm just saying, don't have to worry from AI in the job, let me say, replacement. AI will come with the new professions, with the new jobs, with the new things that people will be really, the challenge is, do we have enough people to run it? That's the question that we have to prepare ourselves, and people develop themselves to be ready to take these jobs.
David?
I think employers have got to take the attitude of making their employees content creators, AI creators. As Chris was saying, we've got to change the way we manage and approach this. It's got to come from the bottom up to be truly effective and productive. And the other dimension of this is employees have got to get used to leading. They've got to manage AI assistants. They've got to manage AI agents. They've got to manage apps, all built within the workflows that they are a part of. They are sitting beside these software automations and effectively AI machines. The other thing we've got to take into account is different countries, different cultures are going to be thinking about this and managing this in different ways. One really good thing that happens in the US is recognition of micro-credentials or non-traditional paths for skills acquisition. And in a fast-changing world like AI, that's much more important than relying on educational institutions and their slow processes and slow curriculum changes to deliver people who've got the skills. You've got to rely on people who'll skill themselves, as engineer said, and you have to be prepared to reskill your employees quickly.
It's like you read my mind, because my next question was specifically regarding skills gaps between markets. So it's one thing for us to be in a market that is sensitive to these changes. But in reality, we also have markets that are supplying labor where penetration of internet is very low. So building spaces where you can create proficiency with technology is very, very difficult. So you have this increasing skills gap between markets, let alone between employees. How do we begin to unpack that? David, if I can ask you to address that first, and then Sven, I'd like to hear your thoughts thereafter.
You know, we're not going to solve the problem of the haves versus the have-nots in the 7 minutes and 23 seconds we have.
Well, we were going to try.
We have left. But look, I think there's a lot of work going on in best practices. We have the internet, for God's sake. There is free AI training available from IBM, from Google, from Microsoft to anyone in the world who has an internet connection. We have Starlink. We have increasing means of getting online, low cost and high value. So I think that problem is market by market, has to be solved with the assistance of the international institutions and frankly, the corporations who are driving the technology do have an interest in bringing more people online. They have an incentive.
Sven?
Yeah, in addition, I agree with that. And in addition to that, I mean, start early, start in school, start in preschool even. It's like, you know, in Sweden, we start learning English from an early age. We should start learning computer skills much earlier, programming and AI and what have you. So I think, and that's happening, and it should happen, and it's going to happen even more. But access for those who are really unprivileged, yes, I agree. We can't solve it in 7 minutes because it happens. We need to make sure that more people become richer, basically. So that's a whole different story, I think. But it needs to happen. Yeah.
Chris, go ahead.
Can I just say, I mean, I think Al Gore was right many years ago when he said there's an uncomfortable truth. Skills gaps aren't that great. I mean, there are specific skills gaps in specific industries, for example, with advanced digital skills. But for the most part, employer skill gaps run at about 11% of the workforce. Skill underuse runs at about 25 to 30%. And that's employers saying that they're not using the skills. And many of those are some of the intermediate kind of routine digital skills that people have in the workplace. I mean, so for example, when we were learning ChatGPT, nobody gave us formal training. The guy in the office next door to me came in and went, wow, look at this. This is fantastic. So I know that he's got new skills, and I want to be able to use his skills to do some work for me. So one of the things we need to think about is not just skills gaps, but how managers and companies are underusing the skills employers already have.
Redesigning business processes as well, I think, is a key component of that. Khalid, if I can give you a moment.
This is the point. Redesigning the process of the systems is something very for the people now. But let me remind you with one thing. For each generation, they born with readiness for the time that having the technology. I remember my kids that they started dealing with the ATM cards and the banking earlier than I did, maybe 15 years earlier. Why? Because they've been born. When the mobile came, and you can see a kid with 2 years, he can just, deal with it, maybe knowing the feature of the My Mobile better than me. So this is life. I'm not worried for AI. The generation will come ready for that, and he will adapt himself and increase his skills to be there, and life will continue, and generation will live with it. And remember, AI will not come tomorrow morning and stop and shut down. People who knows, people who doesn't. No, it will take a time, and the people will be in and out.
Also, demographics speaks in our favor, because we have a situation where fewer and fewer people are being born, which obviously means that we come to a situation where the demand for labor is going to be quite high. So there is a pull in that, right? So companies and countries are going to make sure that young people are being educated and brought into this system of demographic reasons.
Dennis?
Yeah, and back to the skills gap. I think AI will also help to tackle this issue, because this is what we've seen, in the employment and recruitment industry. I've been working for the last, 20 years, that AI is already very much used. And it's really helping when we are assessing and screening a CV to identify skills that the candidate himself is not aware of, So this is really empowering people with additional skills that they are even not aware of. And for me, back to the question, the key question when it comes to AI and jobs, it's whether AI will augment jobs or whether it will automate or destroy jobs. And then I just want to give you a very personal experience. 2 weeks ago, I went to an art exhibition. It was a photo exhibition. It was the first ever exhibition on photos made by AI. And there were still some people behind it. And actually, they don't call it anymore photography, they call it promptography, because all the pictures, the image, have been created by artificial intelligence. But then what matters the most, as you know, when you're talking about AI, is how you are prompting what you want to get. And there you still have the human dimension behind it, but then, of course, you can use the power of AI to create new, amazing, and fascinating images.
But equally, do you then not have a gap between those who are able to maximize AI versus those who aren't? So even though they equally are available to them, one may be able to maximize that tool better than the other, Chris.
I've just said there's not a huge skill gap within workplaces, and that's with the workers. I'll tell you where I think the skills gap is, with managers. I mean, we did an analysis in our region in England of 73 training providers and asked them what they provide. Very, very few, almost none of them provided training in the management of new technology. I think that is amazing when we're all jumping up and down saying new technology is the future, that we're not training them. And where it was provided was typically in universities, and it was part of a formal, full-time degree. Now, that's not good for managers. So we need to get managers or companies together with training providers to think about how we can address that, because we won't get those productivity gains unless managers know how to use technology properly.
Rapid fire round. One word each. If we are talking about leveraging or improving productivity, what is the one word for the one thing that we need to do to make that happen? Chris, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to work my way back. So Khalid, you have the benefit of thinking about it. Chris, you go ahead.
I don't have the benefit, but I would use the word human-centric. We have to build technology around people.
Okay. Dennis?
Okay. Can I answer with an equation?
No, you can't.
AI,
you can answer
AI
with one
plus
word.
HI, human intelligence, will provide return on investment.
Dennis, you are now... Okay, we'll deal with Dennis off stage. Sven?
Well, I'm with you. Human-centered economy.
That's not what... Okay, this is how this works. It's one word, Sven. One.
Well, I'll hyphenate it.
Oh, my goodness.
You can reduce it.
Go ahead, David.
People centricity.
Khalid?
Good one.
I think we have to centrate on education, training, and changing regulations.
Well, that's one.
Can I just say, these are incredibly smart people who've done extraordinary things, and they're unable to produce one word to define something. It's incredible.
I have it. Hope.
Hope. Okay,
That's
thank
the
you.
word.
Gentlemen, that was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank
Chris,
you.
Dennis, Sven, David, Khalid, to each of you, thank you so, so very much, and your appreciation to them as well.
Thank you.
If I can ask you to make your way this way with me as we prepare for the next discussion. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. If I can ask you to please follow Yusuf. I think what that session clearly demonstrates is that there is no universal agreement or universal solution or universal approach that is going to help us figure this out. A lot of it is about learning to ride the bicycle while you are on the bicycle, the proverbial bicycle. So I think there is certainly a lot for us to figure out. How do we make sure that AI isn't just something that we do because we maybe don't want to think or that we need a little bit of a boost in our thought process, but how can we really maximize it as a tool? And how do we make sure that those that we work with, those who are part of our team, are better able to, I suppose, in a way, utilize the tools that are available to them? I think it's a tricky question, and I think that panel clearly demonstrates that we haven't quite figured out how that works. And in addition, it's something that perhaps we weren't able to grapple with as much as one would have liked, but I think it's still a fundamental question to ask. There are parts of the world where technology is not readily available. There are parts of the world where access to that technology is not readily available. So how do we make sure that there is some equity in terms of how we disperse and make technology available, so that when we are looking at the movement of skills and we're looking at how we can transfer and translate some of those skills to different markets, we can do so with more assuredness and perhaps with more efficiency and effectiveness. I think that panel gave us quite a lot of food for thought. Well, certainly did for me, and I hope that it did the next for you.